Scotland's new Hate Crime and Public Order Act comes into force today that criminalises threatening behaviour based on age, disability, sexual orientation and transgender identity. But critics say it will make the police's job a lot harder. Joining me now is Dr. Debbie Hayton, teacher, journalist and author of Transsexual Apostate, My Journey Back to Reality. Debbie, what's your initial instinctive feel about this new law?
I don't like it at all. I wish they'd never pushed this law. I think it's unhelpful and I think it's very dangerous. It starts politicising what people are allowed to say, what people are allowed to think. I sometimes begin to wonder whether George Orwell just got it wrong and he should have entitled his book not 1984 but 2024, because we seem to have got there.
And in terms of free speech, there are huge concerns amongst people, perhaps who may have gender critical views, which many of us may agree with, many of us may not agree with, but they may feel silenced for fear of being reported to the police.
Well, yes, it's been reported to the police, and it's that process which follows, which is the punishment sometimes. Even if down the line the police decide to take no action, the fact that you've been investigated, the fact that the police have put a note on the file, the fact that it may come up on a DBS check so it can hamper your right to work, these things are very worrying. And what the concern is that it will become a criminal offence to offend somebody. And as Salman Rushdie once said, nobody has the right to be not offended.
There would be members of the sort of transgender community who would think this law is a good thing, that it will offer them more protection, surely.
Well, protection from whom? This is the question. Laws which start policing what people are allowed to say and what people are allowed to think favour the powerful. The powerful, if there's ever a dispute between two groups of people and they both try to use the same piece of legislation to stop the other group saying what they think, then it's the powerful group which will hold sway. That's the concern.
And how do you feel online? Because there is a lot of online kind of narrative around various issues in the transgender debate. How do you feel on a personal level reading some of that?
Oh, online it's dreadful. People behave in some dreadful manner online. It's almost as if they leave their humanity behind. What's important to me is my life in real life. When I walk down the street, when I catch the bus, when I go to work, there I'm interacting as a human being, and there's no need for hate crime legislation. There's no need for this. The issue is when we go online, people seem to lose their manners behind. They behave in a rude and obnoxious manner. But even so, should that be criminal? Because you can always just turn it off. You can block, you can ignore.
And there is this point as well, isn't there, as you've kind of rightly alluded to, whereby you could be reported, the police could investigate, find that it's not a crime, but as you say, this still remains on your record.
Well, yes, and this does concern me personally, because I'm on record as saying trans women and men, get over it. It is the truth. It might be something that we don't like to admit, and it's something that we don't appreciate, but it is the truth. And by speaking the truth, I may well be criminalised for that.
And there is a level of irony that you yourself could be criminalised for hateful speech against the transgender community.
Well, yes. What laws like this does is it imposes an orthodoxy. It imposes the right way to think, the right opinions to have, and the right opinions to express. Certainly online, if you express different opinions, then you can be marginalised and shamed. Sure, but it seems now we could be criminalised for those different opinions, and that's dangerous in what we still think is a democratic society.
And Debbie, what do you say to some of the charities, I'm thinking Stonewall, etc.? Do you feel like they strike the right balance between trying to protect the rights of the trans community and free speech or not?
I just wish some of those charities would never have got involved. I go back to 2013, 14, 15, when I transitioned. I was getting on in my life under the radar without anybody taking any notice of me, and I was having very, very little problems. Then along comes Stonewall and along come these campaigning organisations. They made a political football out of transsexual people, and that is at the basis of the problems that we see today. I just wish they had never bothered.
And do you get frustrated by politicians using the trans debate as a bit of a culture war issue?
Well, yes, and I hear politicians using trans people to as that political football. I just wish they'd just leave us all alone. And what I think people don't realise is to jump on this hobby horse almost, this trans allyship, this virtue signalling, it's not helping trans people at all. It really isn't. Treat us as human beings, the same as everybody else, please.
Well, thank you, Debbie Hayton, there joining us, and apologies to people at home for some of the language there you might not have appreciated. Matthew and Claire still with me. Matthew, what did you make of what Debbie said there, particularly her point, I think the one you referred to from Friday around her belief that, you know, transgender women are men?
Yeah, I think that Debbie was very articulate. I think it was very powerful. A lot of what she said, I mean, it's one view, so she can't speak for the entire trans community any more than I can speak for anyone other than myself. I don't think people should have to, as it were, as she said, transition under the radar. I completely understand, and I completely understand that life has become much, much more difficult for her and other trans people, and that's appalling. Mm-hmm. But I would like to live in a society where you don't have to be, as it were, under the radar when you transition, that we don't live in a society of polarised positions filled with so much hate. The other thing I would just pick Debbie up on is what she said about the difference between real life and online. I mean, when I'm on the wrong end of a pile-on, as I've already described, and I'm talking about thousands of
we've all been there, one way or
sure.
another.
And I've got a rhino skin, okay? I'm pretty tough. But there's a little bit, even of me, that feels slightly uncomfortable when that happens. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of me, as someone who was bullied quite badly at school, where memories of that come back, okay? So, of course, Debbie's right that people do leave their manners at home, and worse sometimes when they're online. I don't quite agree with her that it's not real life. Because, yes, people behave much, much better, or tend to, when we are face-to-face. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that online bullying, online trolling doesn't have an effect.
Mm-hmm. Claire, I mean, you must have had your fair share online as well.
Oh, yes, hatred from varying different corners of social media. And that's fine, and I can take that. Actually, it was my son that got quite upset when he saw some of the stuff that was written about me, and he wanted to go find the people. And I think it's the effect that it sometimes has on families. Now, we all accept that we will get abuse online for certain things that we say is part of what we do.
Well, you say we accept. We know that we will. We shouldn't accept it.
No, you shouldn't accept it, but you realise that it is going to happen. If you put yourself out there, if you give your opinions, then you are inviting people to comment on them. And I think that we all know that, and we're all tough enough to deal with it. What I hadn't appreciated was the impact that it would have on my son seeing these things written about his mother.
I fully agree. It's the same for my mum.
Absolutely.
Same for my wife, by the way. She can't look at my Twitter or my ex anymore. No. Because why would you want to see your husband being abused? And there is a difference, by the way. If I put something out on social media, absolutely I'm inviting people to agree with me, to disagree with me, to come back at me. There's a difference between that and abuse.